PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. And welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, where we break down everything involving your Vegas Golden Knights. And what an interesting game and a very interesting matchup that we had here, as we're going to be breaking down the Vegas Golden Knights and their last game of this road trip, heading to Minnesota, taking on the Wild. And there's a lot of impactful storylines that happened in this game. And we're going to talk about all of that here on Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Very quickly, go to the website, www.prconnectionsradio.com. Check out all the content we have on there. We have about around a dozen shows on the platform, including Vegas Hockey Hub. Go to our social media pages. Follow us on all social media platforms. We have our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We have a Facebook page at Vegas Hockey Hub. You can like that. That would be much appreciated. If you could follow us on Instagram at Vegas Hockey Hub, where we upload sporting events that we go to. And then on Twitter and TikTok, we are also on those platforms as well at Vegas Hockey Hub. We try to interact and engage with all of our listeners and the people who are our audience, and much appreciated to all of them. So go to our social media pages, and if you could subscribe and like those, that would be very much amazing. I am also on social media as well at Ian J. Rachiele, and that is your host as well. And we are all here on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Now, before we get into the actual game itself, and we're going to do the wild card update. We'll talk about the lineup changes that happened pregame. Obviously, all the stuff that happened during the game itself, and then depending on the time frame, we'll talk about what's leading up, because you only have about 8 games left on the calendar. But before we get into all of that, I do want to mention something real quick. The Minnesota Wild, when it comes to your jerseys, your reverse retros you had about a while back, the Subway-looking ones where you had the green and the yellow and everything. Hey, can you make those your actual current jerseys? I've been saying for a while that the reverse retros the Golden Knights had, the glow-in-the-dark jerseys that the Vegas Golden Knights had, are the best uniforms in franchise history. All right, I have made videos. I've talked about when I did my best uniforms or my favorite uniforms of all time. I mentioned how the glow-in-the-dark is the best uniform in Golden Knights franchise history. Well, your Subway reverse retros are the best uniform in franchise history. I really don't like your current jerseys, the green, the red. I mean, it's just kind of bland, just kind of average looking. So as I was watching the game, I really sat back and reflected on what your reverse retros look like. And I just want to ask very quickly, can you bring those back? Now, I know they were inspired by the Minnesota North Stars. North Stars, they were there before you. They went to Dallas. We know all of that. But please bring back those reverse retros, just like I wish they'd bring back the glow-in-the-dark jerseys for Vegas. Please change the uniforms. Now, getting into the playoff standings, the Western Conference, there is so much to go over right now with your Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas Golden Knights right now, 3rd in the Pacific Division, 90 points on the year. Now, they are 4 points behind the Edmonton Oilers, who are 2nd in the Pacific Division with 94, so 4 back from the 2nd spot. And currently, the LA Kings have 87 points. So right now, Vegas has a little bit of a cushion between the LA Kings, which would be the 3rd and final Pacific Division spot. And with the current playoff standings, Vancouver Canucks are 100 points on the year. So they are 6 points ahead of Edmonton, and they are 10 points ahead of your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, in terms of the wild card standings, they are tied with Nashville. So in a worst-case scenario, if the LA Kings do find a way to match your Vegas Golden Knights, Vegas is currently tied with Nashville. They are exactly at 90 points. You see the Winnipeg Jets, they are at 94 points. Colorado Avalanche, 100 points out there in the Central. And then you have the Dallas Stars, who are at 102. So overall, Dallas having the number 1 seed, the top record in the Western Conference. Colorado firmly at 100, but they're trying to compete with Dallas for that top spot. It seems like Colorado and Winnipeg is kind of what it's going to be right now. Nashville being the number 1 wild card. Vancouver having the second spot. So it seems like Vancouver and Nashville is kind of being set up here. And then you have Edmonton and Vegas. And, like I mentioned in the last show, Edmonton and Vegas last year in the playoffs. Could you imagine a 2 versus 3 matchup? Could you imagine seeing a Vegas Golden Knights team taking on Edmonton for the second year in a row? Now, instead of it being the second round like last time, being a first-round matchup between your Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. But still, that was a crazy series last year. So it would be really interesting, and I actually would be intrigued to see how a first-round matchup between Edmonton and Vegas would go. And LA would face off against Dallas currently based off the projected standings. Now, with it having, like I said, 8 games left on the calendar, 7 or 8, depending on which team you are. So there is still some time for seeding to be around. Like I mentioned, Vegas is 4 back from Edmonton. And if they did surpass Edmonton, if they continue to win like they are right now, then you would have home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs, which would be vital for Vegas. So you're 4 back from Edmonton, and you are 3 up on LA. So that's your playoff standings update. And when you're really sitting here and analyzing everything, it's going to be really good to see where Vegas ends up. I'm very confident that your Vegas Golden Knights are going to make the playoffs based off of, Minnesota is a team that was trying to battle for a playoff spot. Vegas just, they're taking on Minnesota in this game. And, right now, Minnesota only 35 wins on the year, whereas you have Vegas at 41. LA, they're trying to compete. They have certain wins right now. So in terms of playoff standings, I would say I'm like 97% sure that your Vegas Golden Knights will be in the playoffs. And, it could be, 70-30 depending on where they are seeding-wise. But I think the third spot in the Pacific Division looks like to be the realistic scenario for your Vegas Golden Knights, and that is your playoff standings update. Your lineup changes for the Vegas Golden Knights as we are talking about this matchup that's going on with your Vegas Golden Knights. 4th game on a 4-game road trip, going to be the final one before they head back home. So the lineup changes. Welcome back, Alex Pietrangelo. Alex Pietrangelo, who has been out for a couple of games now, he is now back in the lineup on the defensive side for your Vegas Golden Knights. And it's going to be very good to have Alex Pietrangelo back. I have all the respect for Ben Hutton and all the respect for Nick Hague. But you could tell that when it comes to Alex Pietrangelo, the talent level that we see from Alex Pietrangelo, the guy who has played over 1,000 games in the NHL, and his value as a player is definitely needed. So Alex Pietrangelo, after being out for a while, he is now back in for the Vegas Golden Knights. And alongside him will be his defensive pairing mate in Alec Martinez. So Alec Martinez, who has been a healthy scratch actually over the last couple of weeks, he is back in the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. And we'll go over the entire starting lineup in just a little bit. But Alec Martinez, once again, back in the lineup. We have actually not seen Alec Martinez for a while. In fact, it's actually been about 2 weeks since we've seen Alec Martinez skating and being in the lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. And to have a guy like Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo, 2 veterans, 2 cup champions, 2 people who have played a very good amount of games in the NHL. In terms of the roster, in terms of the lineup, it is a need for the Vegas Golden Knights, especially come playoff time, to have the veteran leadership of Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo. So in the in column, we have Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo. Now, unfortunately, to put those 2 in, we had to have two people come out. Ben Hutton, who has been holding it down recently in the starting lineup, him being the seventh defenseman, he comes in when an injury happens or when there needs to be a lineup change. Ben Hutton has done really well chemistry-wise. As a matter of fact, him and Zach Whitecloud have been teamed up together for the last couple of games. Ben Hutton, it's just the reality is when somebody comes back in the lineup, somebody has to be taken out. So Ben Hutton back to being a healthy scratch for the Vegas Golden Knights. The role of the seventh defenseman, it happens unfortunately, but he is out of the lineup. So Ben Hutton, someone who has been a very good member of the Golden Knights of the last month since injuries have occurred. He is out of the lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. And Ben Hutton, I will say, he'll probably be back in the lineup once again if injuries do occur, but he is out of the lineup for Alec Martinez. And with Alex Pietrangelo being back in the lineup, they had to have somebody from the core be taken out. And it has been decided that Zach Whitecloud, who has been starting majority of the season this year, he will be out on the third defensive pairing. And kind of a big shock, I will say, because when it comes to Zach Whitecloud, he's been dependable on the third line. I'm not going to sit here and say that he has been great this season, but he has been dependable. He's been playing almost every single game for the Golden Knights. And, I understand that he was taken out around February. He was out for a game or two, but he's normally been in the lineup. He's been consistent. So, yeah, kind of interesting to see what happens there. But Zach Whitecloud taken out of the lineup in this game against Minnesota in replace for Alex Pietrangelo. And then Alec Martinez was taken in. Ben Hutton taken out of the lineup on the defensive side. And then in net for the Vegas Golden Knights, and this is actually going to be a back-to-back for him, Logan Thompson. And Logan Thompson, who has, like I said, gone 4-1 in his last 5 starts. He has won his last 4 in a row. And this is somebody who picked up a very good victory against the St. Louis Blues earlier this week. Then, in the most recent matchup on Thursday, beat the Winnipeg Jets, now in net for the Vegas Golden Knights on a Saturday night against the Minnesota Wild. And Logan Thompson, MVP of the Golden Knights this season, he has done what he has to do. And I have to give him a lot of credit when it comes to your Vegas Golden Knights. This is a Logan Thompson, an LT, that your Vegas Golden Knights, when it comes in clutch, when he is needed, that is who they count on and they rely on in net. So him and starting for the starting goaltender. Now, your lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights, let's start with the forwards. Forward line 1. This is the usual suspects here. At left wing, you have Ivan Barbashev, who was player of the game against the Winnipeg Jets in the most recent matchup. 2-goal performance he's coming off of. At center, you have Jack Eichel, who did have a goal against Winnipeg. 25 goals on the year. He has been arguably the best player performance-wise over the last month. And then you have the 40-goal scorer himself, Jonathan Marchessault, rounding out the line 1. Now, here is the change, and it's your second and third line. Now, recently, your line 2 has been Pavel Dorofeev, William Karlsson, and Michael Amadio. But in this game against Minnesota, they have done a swap here as Paul Cotter will be on line 2 alongside Chandler Stevenson and Michael Amadio. So Cotter, Stevenson, and Amadio will be your forward line 2 against Minnesota. And then forward line 3, you have Pavel Dorofeev, William Karlsson, and Anthony Mantha. So essentially you swap Cotter for Dorofeev and Stevenson for Karlsson. So once again, forward line 2, Cotter, Stevenson, and Amadio. Forward line 3, Dorofeev, Karlsson, and Mantha. Forward line 4, this has been a constant over the last month. Brett Howden, Nick Waugh, and Keegan Kolazar. So your forward lines for the Vegas Golden Knights, Barbashev, Eichel, Marchessault, Cotter, Stevenson, Amadio, Dorofeev, Karlsson, Mantha, Howden, Waugh, and Kolazar. So that will be your forward line 1, 2, 3, and 4 for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. Now, defensive pairings, Nick Hague and Noah Hannafin will be your defensive pairing 1. So this group who has been together for the last couple of weeks, they like the chemistry there. Bruce Cassidy obviously likes what he sees there. So Bruce Cassidy is having Hague and Hannafin be on the same line. Braden McNabb and Shea Theodore over the last 2 months. This has been your line 2. And then defensive pairing 3 back together once again. Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo. So Pietrangelo and Martinez replacing Hutton and Whitecloud in the starting lineup. We talked about that in the beginning of the show. And then in net for the Vegas Golden Knights, as you see on screen there, Logan Thompson for the Vegas Golden Knights. And when you're talking about this recap and everything that's going on with this game, playing out there in Minnesota, that is your defensive pairings and your goalie in net for Vegas. Getting into the game itself, as the puck would drop in Minnesota, first period, not much would happen in terms of the scoring or offensive side of it, but there would be a lot of stuff going on in terms of the physicality, as it would actually be a really good back and forth game in terms of the hitting. There was some really good in terms of checking, in terms of hitting, in terms of all that stuff happening there, as you would have 33 hits between Vegas and the Minnesota Wild. Now, there would be 2 penalties in the first period, and both would be against the Minnesota Wild, as you would have in the first 4 minutes a tripping penalty against Chandler Stevenson, and the Minnesota Wild would go to the box there. Vegas Golden Knights would be on the power play, and unfortunately for the Vegas Golden Knights, they would not capitalize on this one. Now, there was a shot by Jonathan Marchessault that just did not connect and just went wide past Philippe Gustafsson. It would stay a 0-0 game between Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. And, when it comes to Jonathan Marchessault, Jack Eichel, they are 2 guys who are really trying to score on the power play, 2 vital members of your power play unit. And the Vegas Golden Knights, unfortunately, first power play of the game would go 0 for 1 for the Vegas Golden Knights. That means 1 for 1 on the penalty kill for Minnesota. And then there would be an interesting penalty that would happen in the first period involving the Minnesota Wild, as you would have a situation where Logan Thompson, he would be in net, he'd be doing his job, he'd be blocking shots against the Minnesota Wild, and Minnesota Wild forward Ryan Hartman would have an interference penalty against Logan Thompson. Minnesota Wild, he would go to the penalty box to create a second power play opportunity for the Vegas Golden Knights. And this was just a terrible play by Ryan Hartman. Absolutely unfortunate situation. And he would just cross the situation, did it to himself. And Logan Thompson with interference penalty. And I will say that this is just a moment where you got to kind of maintain your composure there. That's 100% on Ryan Hartman. Right call by the Vegas Golden Knights. And the referees did what they had to do. And it was a good situation there. Now, I do have to mention that later on, there is something to happen in overtime involving Ryan Hartman that we are going to get back to at the end of this video. But yeah, Ryan Hartman, interference penalty on Logan Thompson would have him go to the box. Unfortunately, Golden Knights would not capitalize. So for the rest of the first period, unfortunately, there would be no scoring by either side. So as you went into intermission, it would be a 0-0 game between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. And this would create an opportunity for the second period, as you would actually have a couple penalties on each side, as halfway into the second period, after another shot by Jonathan Marchessault that just went wide, there would be a too many men penalty on the Minnesota Wild. Marcus Johansson, he would go to the penalty box to serve it for Minnesota. And it would be the third power play opportunity for your Vegas Golden Knights. And it would not be executed, as unfortunately, the Vegas Golden Knights would go 0 for 3 on the power play. And just very unfortunate for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is unlike what happened in the game previously, where the Vegas Golden Knights went 5 for 5 on the penalty kill. The Golden Knights just going 0 for 3 on the power play in this game. It's just unfortunate to see. Now, later on in the second period, there would be a penalty by the Vegas Golden Knights. There would be a game misconduct that just did not need to be happening, and it would involve a star player from the Vegas Golden Knights, a key member of the top six, as he would suffer a game misconduct as he would create a penalty in this situation. And unfortunately, it would involve your Vegas Golden Knights, as you would have about 6 minutes left in the second period, still tied at 0 between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. And you would have a center from Vegas that would get a game misconduct, as that would be Jack Eichel. So Jack Eichel would spear Kirill Kaprizov, and he would get a game misconduct. And in fact, him would actually have a situation where Paul Cotter would have to go to the penalty box to serve a penalty for Jack Eichel. And look, I understand that things happen, but for Jack Eichel to get a 15 penalty minutes in the span of a second, him getting a spear on Kirill Kaprizov. Hey, look, I'm not talking wrestling, all right? I'm not talking about Bill Goldberg's spear. I'm talking about when it comes to hockey, Jack Eichel, unfortunate penalty for the Vegas Golden Knights. And this would create the first opportunity for scoring in this game, as Jack Eichel, unfortunately, would open this up. And about 4 minutes left in the second period, the Vegas Golden Knights would have a power play for Minnesota, and it would be executed by, hey, look at that, Kirill Kaprizov, as he would have a 37th goal of the season, assisted by Brock Faber, the very talented rookie for the Minnesota Wild, and it would be a 1-0 game for Minnesota. And this is just really their way of executing and really taking advantage of this misconduct penalty by Jack Eichel, and it would create a 1-0 game at the end of the second period. And the fact that Kaprizov actually scored on the same period that he got a spear from Jack Eichel, and it was just a situation where your Vegas Golden Knights, they messed up. They did not have the discipline there, and you unfortunately allowed Minnesota to get into this game and would open the door for Minnesota. So at the end of the second period, going into intermission, you would be down by 1 goal, the Vegas. So as your Vegas Golden Knights get into the third period between Minnesota and Vegas, now there would be no penalties in the third period. So thankfully, your Vegas Golden Knights, after having that power play goal led up on Kirill Kaprizov, your Vegas Golden Knights, they had an opportunity to tie this game up. Jack Eichel, there was a shot that just went off the pad, and then you even had a goal opportunity that just hit the post. And unfortunately, I cannot remember who the player was, but it was a defenseman. It was a slap shot. It was up in the slot, and it just went off the post, did not go in. However, 7 minutes left in the third period, your Vegas Golden Knights would get a goal from the top six, but someone who probably you didn't see coming, as Michael Amadio with his 13th goal of the season, assisted by Chandler Stevenson and Alec Martinez. And just like that, your Vegas Golden Knights get back into this game, and it would be a tie 1-1 game between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. Now, Michael Amadio, who has been on that second line, he has been with Carlson, Dorotheyev, he's been with Stevenson, he's been with Cotter. But in this game, at this exact moment, the second line, they stepped up. Chandler Stevenson had a good play on this one, got it to Amadio. Plus, I have to point out that Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo on defense did really good on the back check as well. So going from the defensive zone, clearing out, getting into the offensive zone, Stevenson to Amadio, 13th goal of the season. And then that leads your Golden Knights to the end of the third period, and overtime would start. Now, I mentioned that when you went into overtime, some guy named Ryan Hartman would be brought up later. And this would be a reason why. As your Vegas Golden Knights into overtime, the Minnesota Wild would do an interesting strategy and interesting play, Cotton. Let's see how this plays out. The Minnesota Wild would pull Gustafsson and create a 4-on-3 opportunity. Okay? They pull the goalie, and it would allow Minnesota to have an extra skater. Well, this would benefit your Vegas Golden Knights, as William Karlsson would get the puck. He would give it to his longtime line mate, Jonathan Marchessault. Marchessault to the empty netter, 40th goal of the season. And just like that, your Vegas Golden Knights, 2-1. Vegas would pick up the victory here. But you might be asking yourself, how does Ryan Hartman factor into this? Well, after the goal from Jonathan Marchessault, Ryan Hartman would toss his stick towards an official and would pick up a penalty for abusive language towards an official. And I will be interested to see if the NHL doesn't step in. The Department of Player Safety does not give Hartman a meeting tomorrow or the day after. But yeah, Ryan Hartman, very unprofessional, abusive language, tossing his stick towards an official, and he's definitely going to have some form of punishment by the NHL. But yes, so Jonathan Marchessault, 40th goal of the season, and just like that, your Vegas Golden Knights pick up the win against Minnesota. So the final game of the month, Golden Knights pick up the victory, and just like that, 7 out of 8 points on a 4-game road trip. Your Vegas Golden Knights are in really good territory now, and this is a Golden Knights team that heading into the last 8 games of the year. You have 2 games against Vancouver, 1 game against Arizona, 1 game against Edmonton, a game against Colorado, a game against Chicago, and then a game against Anaheim. Interesting enough, however, this isn't the last matchup for Minnesota and Vegas, as on April 12th, the Minnesota Wild are going to come back to Vegas, play at T-Mobile Arena, and depending on what happens in his future, maybe Marc-Andre Fleury will play, maybe he won't, but it is a possibility that this could be the last time Marc-Andre Fleury steps in Vegas and suits up for Minnesota. So here's your win-loss record for the Vegas Golden Knights: 41 wins, 25 losses, and 8 overtime losses. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is your Vegas Golden Knights roster, who is 4 points behind Edmonton for the second spot in the Pacific and 3 points ahead of LA in the wild card standings. Now, player of the game, I got to give it to Jonathan Marchessault. Not only did he contribute all night long, but 7 shots on net, wins the game-winning goal for your Vegas Golden Knights, but he also did very well and had very good shifts throughout the entire game, had 21 minutes of ice time, and he did execute when it mattered the most. So, this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and this was your recap of their game against the Minnesota Wild. 2-1 victory here. And Logan Thompson, I have to also give him a lot of credit too. Logan Thompson performed excellently tonight. 32 saves on 33 shots. And I really like what we saw from LT today. Logan Thompson, he would be my honorable mention if it wasn't for Jonathan Marchessault getting the game winner in this matchup. And I have to say, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, really strong way to end the final road trip of the Golden Knights on the 2024 season. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.